Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bájò, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bájò, olúwa mi ò dìde ojú sí
The Ashen Forge. The Ashen Forge.
Hello and welcome to the Ashen Forge. I am Phantom X, joined as always by Diggs and the legendary Neurotoxin, and not one but two esteemed guests, Vlhadus and Ludullu. How y'all doing?
Doing good, man. What's up?
Yeah, doing great.
You said we've had five people on at once. I don't remember. I guess that would have been like way back.
With Zog, when Zog
Oh,
was
that's
with us.
true.
And then if we had Steven, then, you know. But
So
it's been a while.
the hope here is that this goes off the rails. But the premise of tonight was to actually kind of talk a little bit about sort of what we all thought what would be the minimum kind of viable product to get to release. But also we've had our bro Vlhadus do a nice little interview.
An
Really good
amazing interview.
Yes, really good interview.
Thank you.
So there's actually quite a lot of other stuff, and Yokai as well today had interviews. So I don't know where the hell to begin, but I think everybody already knows both of you. Normally I'd have you introduce yourselves, but been here before. I think communities tend to overlap, so I don't know that we need to do that this time.
I think we're okay.
Yeah, we're fine.
We're good.
12 days. 12 days till glorious. I don't know.
Damn time, dude. I'm
For me,
pumped,
it's
man.
11.
Like, yeah, I'm excited. I think people still need a little bit of a reality check into what people are gonna actually experience on the 25th. But the excitement is definitely there for me. Like I'm pumped. I'm ready to do this. Send me in, crash me in, boot me out. Boot me in. I'm ready to experience it all. I mean, I think we've just been at this precipice of waiting for so long that we're about to finally be at the point we've all been wanting to be at, which is great. And now we're going to run a new race. We've been running this race as to, the question was, when is Alpha 2? When is Alpha 2? Now the question is going to be like, when is launch or when is the next phase? That it's going to be a whole new race now. But I'm excited because at least now we're actually playing the game.
So, everybody is
that's
so
what
interested and
Vlad-
excited
yeah,
about
ask.
saying when is Alpha 2? And I think a lot of people aren't asking the big question. How is Alpha 2?
Why is Alpha 2?
Indeed.
Yeah.
I don't think we mean to get that deep here, but
You say
Alpha
this
2
after the previous episode with Flanker, where you spent like almost 3 hours discussing a singular topic? You say you are not going deep?
well,
Come on.
to be fair,
Come
like
on.
2/3 of that was semantics. So
That's the depth. Where else would you find depth? We can semantics also. What, why, where? Isn't that kind of semantic? Come on.
Well, I wanted to apologize to Diggs because originally when I said, "Do you guys like Steven? Why do you hate PVE?" I was originally going to say like, "Why do you hate Diggs?" But I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't want to name drop Diggs.
It's anonymous. It's anonymous, right? It's the
At
same
this
thing.
point, it is, yeah.
you should have done that.
I love this question to it though. I think the back and forth, because again, people are calling me a PVE Andy. Like I do enjoy PVE. I mean, but I also enjoy PvP. Like I do. Like I enjoy both sides, even shitty PvP like World of Warcraft. Like I can dig both. But and no pun intended. But I mean, I like both. You know what I mean? But the thing is I was trying to explain to Steven is that you can do PvP without being interrupted by PvE, and it doesn't work that way oppositely, right? Like anytime you're engaging in PvE, there always has to be this PvP around, and it's like, well, if I just want to go into a dungeon and be uninterrupted by PvP and just do the dungeon, like test my skill against these bosses, these mob packs or, whatever, or puzzles that the dungeon has to offer, like, why not? And I really loved his answer, the fact that the instance content, that he wants to have that balance of not only PvP arenas but potentially repeatable PvE content.
Yeah, that was
which
huge.
is really
And
great to hear.
potentially a change in direction, at least a slight one, because before they didn't say that we would have repeatable or grindable PvE, instance PvE. So
Right.
yeah,
I think it's fine. I think again, like it's one of those things where people are like, oh, well, then they're just going to be stuck in this instance the whole day. I was like, well, yeah, if they are, then that's more opportunity for you in the open world. You know what I mean? If they're stuck in an instance, you can go and grab like actual crap in the real world. Like, that's an advantage for you. It's not a negative. Like I understand this whole thing where everybody wants everybody to be in the open world, but there's actually a strategic advantage if there's a certain guild running a certain dungeon that's instanced. It's like, hey, now is our time to pounce because they're usually in this area and we can go into that area and harvest or gather or put a caravan up
or
there.
you
Like,
can camp them because they sooner or later will come out, and you have to kill
exactly.
them for their loot and their drops. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. It was a good answer.
And
Yeah.
that's assuming they have stuff that you want. And I think that, I mean, part of the issue there, I think, is, Steven's obsession with being competitive, constantly competitive. And, you know, I, I think those people who are wanting to go into an instance are probably wanting periods where they don't have to be competitive. And that doesn't mean, especially since they probably would be less competitive, that they need to have uh, the high rewards, right? With greater risk comes greater reward. And so, with lesser risk for PvP, which is what risk really stands for, um, you can have, things that are more cosmetic rather than, a really hard bang that those people who are more casual in terms of challenge are interested in, that people who have a greater interest in challenge and being meta, um, you know, might not be as interested in, like cosmetics. Um,
That would be a
but
question about what the repeatable PvE is and what its reward is. Because
that's
so
right.
far
That's what I'm
Steven
saying.
just said,
Yeah.
well, maybe there will be repeatable PvE. But then
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
question, if it's a casual PvE thing, then why would it be repeatable? Because like just give the casual players what they spend their time to get. And that's it. They do an instance dungeon, they get the cosmetics or whatever. Great, everyone's satisfied. But
Yeah.
if it's a repeatable thing, that implies either that there are good loots that you need to farm several times over just to get, or that the drop rates are so damn low that you need to repeat until you get something. And in
I mean,
both of those cases, you would need some competition outside of it because that loot would be valuable at least to some extent. So yeah, depending on what's the repeatable PvE rewards, I do still think we'll have to be competitive around it. We'll see.
well, I think it also depends on what repeatable means because it's still supposed to be dynamic, and it's been said that even when you go back in, it's not going to be exactly the same. Repeatable doesn't necessarily mean exactly
Hopefully,
the
yeah.
same. And then, I mean, I'm happy to get different stuff. I don't have to get better stuff all the time. It's nice to get, you know, different stuff. Doesn't have to be vertically better. It can be just, hey, this is different. It helps me play a slightly different way, or
I agree with
maybe I'm
Gigs.
gonna, you know,
I
um,
I think achievements. I think cosmetic, transmog kind of stuff, or even like character cosmetic, like scars. Whatever. Like if you
mhm.
beat this boss on like the max difficulty in that dungeon, you could earn like a really cool fell scar or like a let's say corruption scar or whatever, right? And like I'm
That
fine with
would be
that as a
cool, yeah.
PvE. I don't need gear like physical
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
dropped gear. Even if it's a
Mhm.
mount, like I would run a dungeon to get a mount, you know what I mean, or something like that. Like I think people just look at it the wrong way because they think, oh, like instanced repeatable PvE content, they're just going to want to do that instead of creating stuff in the open world. I still want professions to make the best shit, don't get me wrong, but you can still throw PvEers a bone and have a challenging bit of repeatable content that doesn't have to be gear related at all, you know so.
Feel like that opinion is usually built on stuff like WoW, like
Oh,
Lost Ark and
absolutely.
stuff like that, because
Yeah.
everyone is so used to repeatable instance PvE being okay. I need to grind this dungeon until I get all the loot that I can from it, And that
Exactly.
means either like a week of grinding straight up or like several months because the rates are shit or something like that. So of course, when someone hears, okay, we'll have repeatable instance PV, they think, okay, that's WoW, that's okay, grind, and I'll have to spend like all my time just within that dungeon because nothing else will ever matter. And that's
No.
why this is a fucking problem. WoW has destroyed the MMO genre. I've been saying this for decades.
Oh, that's funny.
Well,
Final
I would have
Fantasy 14 does it too.
I would have agreed with you from 2010 to 2020. But with Shadowlands and Dragonflight, and I hear War Within is excellent. Um, but the last couple of
Feel
years
like
of World of
it got better
Warcraft,
for the different audience though. From what I've seen and heard from people who have played WoW, I feel like it's
Sure.
gotten better for the newer audience of WoW.
That's
So
true.
we have like vanilla light and early versions and expansions that pretty much everyone loves, which is why we got classic. And then the recent expansions are mostly for those who came to WoW after the 2010 and stuff, and it's great for those people.
So I want to ask a question.
Do it.
Do you think that the balance and quality of the corruption system is going to be important to maintaining a PvE player base? And I'm going to reference a couple of things that were mentioned in the interview earlier on Yokai Theater, one of them being DA saying that he believes in the current state of the spot testing that he believes the corruption is punishing in a pretty meaningful way. And I think they had said that it doesn't even have all of its punishing features fully built in quite yet.
Yeah.
So the other thing that was stated was that they're intending to have PvP restricted areas around spawn points. So if you respawn, you're not going to get spawn camped because they're not allowed to attack you there. So do those two features, the corruption actually being potentially effective and letting yourself take a little bit of an extra resource hit and repair bill and experience loss in exchange for somebody being more heavily punished for it, um does that sound like a meaningful deterrent? I believe they had also mentioned that the guards actually it had been a bug that they didn't, but now they attack people who are corrupted. So
As they should.
if they're effectively, you're treated as an enemy. I don't believe you can trade with other players as well.
Nope.
So you give drops if you get killed or when you die. So it's kind of a big thing. Does that sound like a deterrent that will actually make PvE with the risk of PvP and dying, losing a bit, but having somebody get the mark of the devil, does that feel worthwhile? Does that feel like a worthwhile deterrent and trade-off?
Did you want to go first, Ludullu?
Not go because I have a full tirade about this.
Okay.
So go first.
The discords that I hop into, because I talk to the all walks of life, staunch PvPers, very hardcore PvEers,
how
and
dare you?
they they well, it's like for me, like I'm kind of
That was
middle of the
just a
road.
big
Like
call out.
I like hearing the perspectives because again, it's like when it comes to corruption, I heard a PvPer and we're having a back and forth, and I was like, I should kill a player like 10 times before like the corruption gets starting to get out of control. And and you say that to a PvEer, and they're like, twice at the most is too much. So you have these super stark differences. And I think from a PvEer's perspective, right? Because I think the reason why a lot of people focus on PvE is because that is the majority of your MMO audience right now. The slice of PvP is radically small comparatively to the overall PvE enjoyer in just the MMOs that are played right now. You think of Final Fantasy, SWTOR, Guild Wars 2, BDO, like PvE is just kind of like the dominant side of things. Like, I mean, there's people, don't be wrong, that love PvP, but those communities are not as big, anywhere near as big as PvE. To answer your question for the corruption, that's the number one thing that most PvEers talk about is the flagging system, how effective it's going to be, is the decision of being corrupt going to deter that person from griefing me repeatedly. Like and most of the PvEers that I talk to say they don't mind if someone's tried to kill them, they're like, all right, go ahead. You know, I know Diggs has talked about that. They're like, all right, you want to go to kill me? I'm going to stand right here. You kill me. And I've heard people say that too. But I think it's just this repeated over and over and over thing. Because again, this is what I tell PvPers, like, well, why do you want to do that to a player that you don't even like have any animosity over? Like when in the same game has like 7 other systems that you don't even need to go corrupt for. Like you can go and engage and actually PvP to your heart's content, but why are you trying to focus on this very like you're beating a dog that's not even biting back? You know, it's like, is that really fun for you? And I understand that's more of like the trolly griefer kind of type, but I think honestly to most PvPers that I talk to that I think are reasonable, say sometimes I'm just in the mood to kill somebody and I'll just pick somebody, but then once they kill them once, they're like, okay, I'm good. I'm satiated at that point. And they'll just go run off and do something else. And I think that's fine. I think it's just more of this troll mentality. That's what has to be reined in. And it does stem off the corruption system.
I totally agree with that, that it's about the amount of PKs under your belt, which is why for years now I have been saying that the bounty hunter system should be balanced and just kind of redesigned to a point where bounty hunters are respected people that help out the greens that died. Because for the question of if the PvEer would be fine if the PKer dies or whatever, because oh my god, I died as a green, but the PKer will now suffer huge punishments. First of all, that's not assured because the PKer might run away, might grind off their corruption, or their party will help them out, or whatever the hell. So that's not really a punishment, and the green doesn't benefit at all even if the PKer dies. And I've been suggesting that if a bounty hunter kills a PKer, they get the loot that their victim dropped. So the bounty hunter at that point would be able to return the loot to the green. So the green would be at a way higher benefit, first of all, if the PKers get killed by bounty hunters rather than by a mob of greens just running around, as has been a topic on the forums today and yesterday. And on top of that, the bounty hunter system would be way deeper, because instead of just, okay, I am running around chasing some reds just for fun or whatever, or for some random reward within the bounty hunter system, I am now also helping greens around me. This is sociable. This is helpful to all the people, not just the bounty hunter. This is, in my opinion, a better system to help deter griefers, because they would now know they will for sure be killed by bounty hunters, because they can get hunted way easier than just by random greens. The bounty hunters would be stronger on average, because they would be hunting corrupted players, which means that you have to be better at PvP and better geared and whatever. So all of this would just support the system overall. But so far we haven't heard pretty much anything about the bounty hunter system outside of, was it you, I think, that asked the question about the bounty hunters, right, on the interview? And Steven just said, well, yeah, it's still there, it's still planned, that's it.
That's why I didn't ask any more questions on it. I had
Yeah,
3 questions on the bounty hunter system, and when he's, I was like, "Fuck, okay," because there's no point in me asking these other questions, because if they're not iterating, or they're not talking, or powwowing about it, there's no sense in me asking these questions, because it's going to be a waste of his time. But I am very excited for the bounty hunter system. I did mean what I say. I think the military node and divine node need some like buffing, basically, comparatively to the other 2 types. And I'm a huge advocate of the bounty hunter system. I want there to be multiple, not just a bounty hunter going after corrupted players. I want there to be like
I wanted
like
to
thieves,
connect it to the highwayman system.
Yeah,
so like someone that's high on the highwayman ranking list would be
Yeah.
huntable by the bounty hunters.
Yeah.
I would completely love if we had some kind of bag that's specifically for the loot of victims. So if
Yeah.
you want to loot a player, you need a specific bag that you can put that loot in. And then bounty
Yeah.
hunters, when they kill either high-ranking highwayman people or PKers, they get that bag and they know who to return those items to. I would fucking love that. But again, yeah,
Even
as you said,
even bandits. Imagine caravans, right? So
yep,
people
yep,
like
yep.
we know that there's like a difference in, and Steven's talked about it. I don't really agree with his answer yet because I think the risk and reward for a defender is far more riskier than just randomly attacking.
Leagues above.
And
Yep.
and so I think would be really cool if there was a bandit system. Like, so there's a corrupted system for the bounty hunter system. So when a corrupted player comes on the map, you as the bounty hunter can see that player on there. The same thing should happen for bandits. And a bandit is a person who initiates attacking a caravan. So if you are a citizen of a military node and you are part of the bounty hunter organization, you should be able to see bandits that are attacking caravans. I think that would also put another huge risk on people wanting to flag against caravans because those bounty hunters can see you. And if you have potential guildies, in your guild that say, hey, those bandits are right over there, like that's where they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, let's go get them.
A better risk for the attackers.
Yeah, for sure.
That's more additive. And again, there's just a lot of iteration. But I think once we get into phase 3, this is why I say we're still years away. Years
Yeah.
away. Like, and it's a marathon, guys. Like, it's not a sprint. And so I'm really glad too when Steven talked about the biomes, because I had so many content creators. I had people I would argue with in Discord. They're like, Steven is not going to show us everything. We're lucky enough probably just to see the one continent, and they're going to keep the whole other continent for the launch that we're not even going to test. And I said, that's ridiculous. Like, if we're going to test, we're probably going to test everything. I would love to test everything, but I've also said too, it was really refreshing to hear that they actually have 2 professional testing houses helping them right now. I hope that continues to the actual launch, because that's super important. But yeah, like I think it's definitely something that we are going to be testing every biome, and we should. There's a lot of stuff that we need to figure out and get to by the time the launch happens. So
yeah, that conversation drives me nuts too. Like the whole, oh, they're just holding stuff back. They're not going to show us everything. It's all there. It's just we're not
Right.
going to get it right away. It's like, why in what world would that make sense when they need to test these things? I feel like that's just a
Right.
very jaded way to look at the reality of where the game is right now. So,
Oh, absolutely.
um,
But I
feel
think a lot of
that's a
people feel
okay.
that way though. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
People just cope that, oh, they are hiding something from us, because that cope helps them believe, okay, that Ashes is way deeper into development and we just haven't seen it. They've been hiding it, and I think that's just people too hopeful and copeful that we just haven't seen everything, and that's it. While the game is way years away from the release.
yeah. They, there's a comment in chat. They do have builds certainly that are ahead or not the current testing build.
But not by a lot.
Yeah, I mean, to think that they have a build out there that has 10 biomes and we're going to get one, like that just
That would be insane.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. So
I mean, content is the biggest thing holding them back. I actually probably do agree that they do have a build that does have 10 biomes ready, but those other 9 biomes have absolutely no content in them. They're just biomes.
They are grayscale.
They're just areas, that are just empty.
they just world build.
Again,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just because again, you go to UE5, you can create a whole landmass super fast. You know what I mean? But then you have to put assets in it. You got to put NPCs in it. You got to put actual mechanical quests in it. Like, there's a lot of stuff, man. And then again, Ashes is a game that is immensely big on systems and also crossing those systems over with other systems. So it's not these standalone things that they just got to plop in. This is a very complicated game. And even simple MMOs are complicated to make. Ashes is like, if we're talking calculus, like Ashes is like complete astrophysicist and space stuff. Like, this is, it's apples to oranges.
Dream theory.
Yeah, it really is. And I think people really don't understand that. I mean, most people in the industry that are in the gaming industry making games, like MMOs, like that's like the boogeyman. Like, oh crap, you're making an MMO? good luck.
Well,
You know?
but for my measure with Ashes, it's not even about biomes because, right, all MMORPGs have biomes, and that's not why we're playing Ashes. That's not why we're
Oh yeah.
excited to play Ashes of Creation. Uh, Nodes is one of the big reasons that we jumped on board for Ashes of Creation. And even if you don't have all the nodes ready, or even one node that can go all the way to stage 6, we've been waiting for the last 2 articles of the Know Your Node
Notes
system
3.
for 5 years. We can't even get we can't even get articles
Yeah.
about it, let alone them creating it in the game. We can't even get the articles that were written about it. So that
Yeah.
tells us that nodes aren't ready. And I don't think we've seen augments, and that's another big thing. That's one of the things that I was expecting to see
Yeah.
at the start, especially after 3 years. Um, at the start of Alpha 2 is augments. And that's another big aspect to me of what is a standout for, we have the 64 classes, and however that's going to work, I would have liked to have seen that by now. I'm going to jump on to say something from the beginning of the show is that, about getting into Alpha 2. The interesting thing there for me is that from 2017 to 2021, I was able to play a little bit of Ashes of Creation at least once a year, if not a couple of times per year, because I went to PAX West and played in 2017. And then it's been 3 years in between Alpha 1 and Alpha 2. So, yes, just jumping in and being able to get my hands on the game again, because, there wasn't a lot for the 2017 demo, but I could still go in and move around and get a little feel for it. So it has been just a dearth
Now, Diggs,
since we've been
imagine
able
if
to
they
even just get
released
in and
that
do
kind of
anything.
stuff now, though. I feel like the problem here is that in 2020, a certain peon released a video that made the game way too fucking popular. And then Steven realized, okay, if we now start releasing alphas that are, well, I can log in and do some stuff, people will shit on it. People shit on it even though we have seen better and better showcases every goddamn month. And people still say, okay, this game is a scam. It looks like shit. It plays like shit, although barely anyone has played it. And like, it would have been even worse if we had something that we can play every year or so. Just because people are not ready. The open development is not something that people are ready for. And I believe it was also Vlhadus that asked this about open development stuff, and Steven said, "Well, it's fucking bad and good as well."
Well,
Well,
I would think if the Lazy Peon video didn't come out and we didn't have this kind of resurgence, we would be 5 to 7 years away at this point, because the amount of money that Intrepid got for people coming into the project, people like
True,
me,
yeah,
there were so many converters of people that started to believe in this game when they never even heard of it. And if that didn't happen, that pivotal moment, they would have been so behind on money. Their hiring would have slowed down immensely. It would have been, I'm not going to say bad, but it just the process would have been so much slower than what it currently is. So, I mean, it was very much a bittersweet thing that happened, right? Because now all eyes are on this project, as far as the MMO community.
yeah,
And, Steven has to put his money where his mouth is, right? Like he has to put out a product, right? And I think with the Alpha 1, people were very divided into how that test was in general, right? There was people like, as much as Steven liked to say it was a very technical test, there was no content really. It was just to kind of, do certain systems. I was very impressed by it personally because I
same.
had never seen that many people on the screen with super minimal lag. And again, coming from WoW, where I can do a 40v40 battleground and that crap is tearing your screen, it is slowing you down. The rubber banding is insanely bad, and then you have a game that just is doing it really, really, really well. So I don't know. Like there was just a lot of hope there, and I think that's why this project is where it is now.
True.
Did you
I,
want to? Or sorry, Phantom, go ahead.
I was just say I think some of this is also Steven's own fault. Like he also, it wasn't just a peon video. I mean, he did his own little rotation of pretty high profile streamers.
But that was after the peon video, because everyone reacted to peon
Right,
video, everyone got hyped, and then Steven, okay, I can play on this because he's a marketing
Yeah.
man at
Yep.
his
But
core.
but
So
there's
he
also an
just
alternative.
used the opportunity.
Yes,
Where he doesn't do that at all.
right. And I'm not saying he shouldn't
Maybe.
have, or he wouldn't have, but that also plays into where his predicament, because he could have easily also just gone on those and said, yeah, you know what, it's going to be great. We're nowhere near where you think we are, and that didn't really happen. So
Yeah,
that's
I
just his
mean,
nature. He has promised and has talked about so much stuff that we haven't yet seen or talked about or even touched upon, and yet it's somewhere either in his just mind and design of his own, or somewhere in some design document. So he does talk a lot and promises quite a lot as well. So yeah, it's his own folly.
I was gonna mention Phantom. So the whole like conversation around the viable product thing. This has been a thing that I've thought about a lot. Because this game is so massive. Like, no pun intended. I know this is an MMO, but this game has so many systems. You go to the wiki, there's over 25 major systems, and then there's systems within those systems. So I can't really call them like the node system in itself is a system, but there is like a lot of systems within just the node system, right? And you think of it at a bare minimum viable product that can be released to the public. And there's not a lot of systems you can sacrifice. Stock exchange, yeah, you can leave that to a patch or an expansion or whatever, right? But naval, could you honestly launch Ashes of Creation without naval? Can you launch Ashes of Creation with just one continent? Can you launch Ashes of Creation with no augment system? You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of core things that need to be in this game. And this is why I tell people the whole conversation around a viability product is because people want this game now. People, and again, this is the sentiment that I was talking about at the end of my interview with Steven is the community's desperate, man. What's out there right now? Go play Throne and Liberty. People say, hey, it's a decent free to play game, but all I see it's botville, just like Lost Ark. You go play Lost Ark, all you see is bots just going around doing its thing. Same thing with Throne of Liberty. And it's pay to win, and then people like to say, well, the pay to win isn't too bad. It's yes, the marketplace, the cash shop, and blah blah blah. But it to me, it's just like it's Korean. I'm not a fan of Korean MMOs usually. That's why I didn't play Arcade. That's why I didn't play Lineage. Because the monetization was always so trash. You know what I mean? It made you as a player, like Steven was saying, like you had to freaking cheat. You had to go to these third party websites to buy gold because everyone else was doing it. So I don't know. The MMO genre right now is suffering, and because of that suffering, that suffrage, people want this game because they see this as like a beacon of light. But the beacon is nowhere near as bright as you think it is. Like we need time. Steven and his team need time, and I think that's just an answer that people don't like to hear, but it's the truth.
The night is just so dark that even the single tiniest light seems like the ever-encompassing whiteness.
Yeah, basically.
And all the hopes are put on that little light.
I got to agree. For minimum viable product, it can't just be as good as what's out there for some of these systems. It just has to be better. It has to be better than WoW. It has to be better than New World. If you can't be better than New World, then like that's a problem. You're potentially running into something that's really not very compelling. That's going to turn a lot of players off, and people aren't really going to enjoy it. So that's one of those things for me that I think is really, really important, especially for catering to PvE players that just intend to play as the dude that hangs out in town for their guild, being fed materials, turning them into weapons and armor and items and all sorts of cool stuff alongside the other people in the guild that do the same sort of thing. It could be the most hardcore of PvP guilds, and then there's just like this little crafting quarter of you guys in your own little 30-man sector of the guild, and you've got all the crafting bonuses going, and you can bust out some real badass stuff on the freeholds, because over time you've been able to continue building up your skills more and more, being fed all the materials to do the specific crafting. I think there's gonna be a lot of that as well. But that means you've got to have a really good crafting system, and you've also got to be ready as players to guard those people when they may run up to like I need to be a level this to use the higher tools or recipes or whatever. Then they go out and power level you real quick.
Well,
That's
can I ask you guys a question? So
yeah.
New World, that to me was a very minimal viable product MMO. And
Mhm.
that's been the issue in
Wasn't even
our
viable.
genre. Well,
To a point.
would you call New World at launch viable?
No. However, that's also, I think, because they switched so late in the game and they did not give their team time to actually do anything with it. Like if you start, I think if you took New World now and did this as their release, I bet out of that, how many? They had almost 1 million on Steam. I think 900 and something
Almost
thousand.
million,
It's like
something.
900.
Yeah.
I bet if you
Yeah.
release it now, you still get the people that would be mad about PvP, but I bet you still, I bet you hold on to 100,000 of those.
I think even more.
Maybe even
There's
more.
just
My
more
point
in the
being,
game as far as I
yeah,
know.
my
But
point being is
definitely more than at the proper release. Yeah.
which is why I think
For
this is a conversation that's kind of important to have.
Well, you can only release once.
Correct.
New World in 2 days is going to try to release again in this, new polished console experience action RPG. And I don't know if people are going to buy it. I think, again, people are accepting it and saying, hey, New World, it's not that bad. It's gotten better. Well, of course, if you start from 0 and go up, of course 1 is better. 3 is better than 0, right? Like I think New World started at 0 for a lot of people. It wasn't good. The issues, the problems, the things that they and again, it's not, I don't really make this the fault of the team making New World. The team making New World advocated to the higher ups to not work within Lumberyard. This is going to be a horrible decision. You're going to force people to basically quit that aren't going to like this engine. The engine has a lot of issues. It's problematic, and the higher ups force them to do this. So I'm not blaming the people that actually were trying to make New World. It was Amazon. It was their bosses basically. And I think, again, this is a corporate issue because not many companies like have that foresight. They just want to pump it out, get their money out, pay their shareholders, and be done with it. And this is why I have no faith in Lord of the Rings MMO. This is why, even with Throne of Liberty right now, like I was looking at the Steam charts and I'm like, 300,000 people. I'm like, this is a brand new MMO and this is what it's launching with. I don't know. It just it's the state is terrible, man.
We knew some people that worked on New World, and yeah, I don't think it was a super joyful experience. My point being is, you're
No.
right, that the developers, it wasn't on them. Coincidentally, also know people that work within Ashes that say it's an absolutely wonderful place to live to work.
Work. Yeah.
I think that was a Freudian slip, to live, because they are pretty much probably living there right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm not
Oops.
gonna break
24/7.
not gonna break
Steven
NDAs.
said that you are testing 24/7, so their teams are working almost 24/7. So yeah, they are definitely living at the office.
Well, yeah, some of this Stephen has said, so we can talk about some of it publicly. I mean, he's already mentioned publicly that they went to 24/7. What did he say? 7-8 days ago. So 100% have a live ops team at this point. He mentioned the PTR. I think it's a little weird, but I get it.
I don't think
PTR
I
would-
love it.
yeah.
I think the PTR is
Inception.
great, and it's like I said, like if they do a PTR and say, "Hey guys, really, this PTR is all about professions. Like if you are a staunch profession person, there's vendors here for the professions. You can learn all the recipes. We have another vendor with all of the materials gathered. Like you don't have to go out and gather. We just want you to craft as much stuff as possible, test the stuff, make sure that it works. Like I think systems like that and at least focused tests like that are extremely important in a super grindy game that's also limiting in the sense of, well, you can only play for 3 days. You're only going to do so much as far as the gathering system goes or the profession system goes. So this actually does allow those testers to really dig deep because they don't have to go and gather or run around the world and do all that stuff. They can just sit there in town, learn all the recipes, do all the things they need to do. That stuff for testing is extremely important. And this is also why when World of Warcraft does their stupid betas and they don't do that, we have all these issues when the game launches because we couldn't focus test that stuff because there was not people willing to go in and gather and do all that stuff, right? So I think it's good. I think it's good.
I also think part of it is just to make that whole permanence, or not permanent. Damn, my mind just went blank. Come on, tell me what I'm thinking. That
I know what you're talking about.
Persistent.
Yeah, but I don't remember the
Persistent.
word. Persistent. Yeah.
Yes. I also think there's a part of it is for
that. Do you
that.
think that phase 1 will have that though?
He said
He said that right now they are testing it with you, like A1 testers and PIs.
That's a good question. I don't know that I should.
Phase 1 will have that. I doubt
That's
that.
a good question.
Because A1s are like what, 10k people, 15k people, something like that, right?
I mean,
so there is nowhere near the 100k, let alone like 200 or 300k that are supposedly in Alpha 2. So I don't believe we will have persistency.
That's fair. Well, yeah, whether the PTR is up 24/7. I mean that's fair.
We're gonna be in Alpha 2 for years as long as they have a PTR coming, whether it's in phase 1 or whether it be phase 2. It's still a good thing because again, phase 2 will supposedly be at the end of the year. I think it's gonna be delayed, but Intrepid's very notorious for doing it. I wouldn't be surprised if they come out tomorrow and say, "Hey, October 25th, November," it could happen. You know what I mean? And when I was saying that, and Phantom, you knew I was saying this on my stream whenever people were all about September and third quarter, and I said, guys, it could be delayed. I don't think it will. I really didn't, but I always had that in the back of my mind that it could, and it did. So, I mean, I think
it always happens.
It does, you know what I mean? And in the gaming industry, as far as when you're making stuff, anything can happen. One day can just ruin an entire week's worth of stuff, depending on what happens. The 3 computers caught on fire. The backup drive didn't do something. Stuff happens, guys. Like it is what it is.
Yeah, I was there with you. I was telling everyone that would listen, based off Node Wars, that game's gone. It's on target. It's on track. I mean, it wasn't that far off, but kind of felt like an idiot afterwards. But it's like, all right. I don't think they will delay it anymore. Actually, a question was asked on Yokai's stream today about whether they would continue NDA into Alpha 2 testing at the start, which the answer was no. They will not. They will remove the NDA for Alpha 2 from the start.
Was that ever in question?
I think depending on where you go, there's a lot of people that bring that up. Like, should they just?
It was brought up in the past, yeah.
Should they actually just do phase 1 under NDA?
Yeah.
My thought though has always been, if you have well, today's stream was a good example. Steven gave Yokai and DA and them a free pass to break NDA verbal.
Yep.
And what happened in chat? Some people that are probably in pre-alpha 2 started saying, "Hey, ask a question about this. Hey, ask a question about that." It's like you are breaking NDA in chat
right in front of Steven.
by telling him to ask this. You were not given permission for that. So that's just with a small group. 100,000, probably 150,000 players. Like, there's just no way. There's just no way
that stays in.
Yeah, that's just not going to happen. So you just do it and get it out of the way. But
I mean, all I'll say is, like, from my perspective, Like I've gone through many ebbs and flows of my excitement and my disdain for the process of this whole thing, right? You know, I've had my ups and my downs. I've had my holy Vlhadus phase, and I've had my Darth Vlhadus phase. You know, it's a real thing. You know what I mean? And I can't imagine you, Phantom, or all of you guys. I mean, been here since like 2017. Like, holy crap! It's
Yeah.
crazy, you know what I mean? But again, we're about to start entering into this thing where we can start talking about it openly. But again, Intrepid needs time, and I've always known that. It's always been in my mind. And even when I would hear when people say, "Well, what's going to be at the start of Alpha 2?" and people had all these things like, "Oh, all these races, all these things, and all the stuff," and then whenever they came out with their AMA with the different phases, people were shocked. They're like, "Wow, phase 1 is not what we thought it was going to be," you know. And
Yeah,
people were
everyone
even
jumped
upset
that
at the
May
fact
is the A to release.
yeah, like and people were thinking, why is there even phases? Like, what is this? You know, and again, phases to me seem like patches. Like it's really what it is. Like, oh, it's a major patch. Like they're just calling it a phase, but it's just technically a major patch. Like, I don't know. It is what
I
it is.
mean, and technically Alpha 2 is starting in May, but you know, with smoke and mirrors, smoke and
I mean, technically, Ashes of Creation was supposed to
mirrors.
release in 2018.
Yeah, before 2020.
Mhm.
I think Steven was trying to block you, Dix. You just froze
100%,
up a little
yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
yeah, I think the phases were
Diggs
just to
is just
say.
in his Darth phase. That Vladis was at some point.
Right.
Diggs has been in that phase for a few months at this point, I believe, if not slightly more. Because
Yeah, this is since
sometimes he just
2022.
jabs.
Mhm.
Well, potentially, yeah.
This has been 2 years
Mhm.
going, man. You've come back a little bit. You have now said that you will play.
It's not really playing. I will be in the game.
What the hell do you
That's
call it
playing
then?
the game.
Testing. He's
Uh,
testing. He's not playing.
Playing would be actually progressing my character and trying to get to max level and
Nah,
you
that you
know
just
doing all that
boxing
stuff.
people in and yourself. You box yourself in with the definition of what playing is. If you are in the game, you are playing the game. That's it.
Really, I'm gonna be in the game to socialize because people ask me to be in the game, but I'm not. When I want to play an RPG, I'm gonna be playing something else.
Well, I'm gonna rail it back in. We're derailing. I'm railing it back in. Phantom, what is a viable product for
yes.
Ashes to you? Like what
Yeah,
what do you
actually-
On that
see?
point, yeah, I wanted to rail it back in as well. A question slightly more detailed. What would you think if at release we only had, let's say, 30 levels? And all the artisanship, all of that stuff was also only up
Ooh.
until, let's say, level 30. And
Interesting.
some mechanics, like, for example, fucking open seas, ships, and all of that shit, was locked behind, like, say, level 40 or 50. So it was kind of in the game, but no one would have access to it. So it couldn't be just not working and would be added later. Because with the Stevens quote that 100 hours to level 25, if that lives through testing and is on release, those 100 hours for a properly casual player, that's like 100 days. And that's around 3 months. And Intrepid are
a good point.
planning to release some updates and semi-expansions every 3-4 months. So that would mean that for a casual player, he would be only hitting level 30 by the point that Intrepid would release some kind of big update. So what are your thoughts if we only have up to like level 30 progression on release?
If we only had up to level 30, people would quit until they can get up to level 50. I'm not paying
Sure,
a
some would,
subscription
yeah.
until this game's finished. Blah blah.
I don't know that I agree with that.
They didn't do that with
Yeah,
SOD.
some definitely would. Some definitely would. But like, what percentage? First of all, and second of all, we would still have like caravans. We would have guild wars. We would have node wars. So stuff like that would still be in the game. So like the overall big system would still be. They would just be limited at a certain level. So the PvP would still be in the game, and the hardcore players are usually PvPers, at least to some extent. So they would have something to do even at those levels. And let's say some PvE would also be at higher levels. So people that can't really craft level 40, say, items, they would be at level 30 trying to fight level 35, level 40 mobs with weaker gear, which would create, in a way, harder PvE. And so they would be grinded bad shit as well. Especially if we have a good enchanting, enhancing, all of that stuff could be boosting level 30 gear higher. And then again, all of that is a gameplay cycle that would interact people for quite a long while. So I believe that could be doable.
Yeah,
If they were going to do something like that, I would rather see it being presented as a new server sort of slow level gate experience where every other day or every 3 days the maximum level increases by 1. It starts at 5, and then pretty much every 3 days or whatever interval it increases by 1, so that way as the server kind of matures a little bit, the people who are efficiency hardcore players will be able to get up to max level, max rank with the different things and stay at the top of everything relative to the time that's provided. And people that are
I
somewhat
could see that, yeah.
casual still have an opportunity to not be too far behind and still be able to participate in the content as the world changes around them. Does that seem like a better way to do it? So that way, instead of it being a matter of you can only get to level 30 until we release the next thing, that there's a bit of a temporary gating process leading up to when they're ready to release the next thing. So everybody gets to experience it and then gets to experience being at that temporary max level for a little bit before, I guess it'd be like a, not an expansion, not a DLC, but just a major content upgrade to get the next level of things up and going.
So, Vlhadus, when you started this, before you mentioned one continent, naval content, I actually think you can release without those things. There will be people that are disappointed, for sure, especially those that have been following for a long period of time and following religiously. Um, there's, of course, a subset of people that really want to have their ships and they want their naval content. But I think if you have the basic systems that are absolutely needed. So the nodes, all these things, nodes, Merrill system, the core stuff of what makes the pillars. So as long as you have the pillars of Ashes of Creation, I don't know that you need all this content right away. If that's gonna slow you down a year or two, there will be people. The only the counter art, because I talked with No One and Nice earlier this week, and I think there was a good counterpoint to that, which was, well, if you have 10K people on a server,
Yeah.
you only have one
I was
continent.
about to say that, yeah.
Is that enough space? And I think that's a fair counter argument to that, but we don't know.
The world is huge.
That's what I mean. It's large. We don't know.
I would say the races is one thing I'm worried about because they have the starting areas for each race on both continents. So if you only release with one continent, are you then gating like 2 or 3 races because they're on the other continent as their starting area, right? That's a worry. Like I want to play Renkai, and if and I think the Renkai is actually on the eastern continent, right? The continent we're not on currently. So it would be a little disappointing if I couldn't play Renkai at the start. But in a perfect world, I would just say again, if this game takes 12 years to make, like okay, you know what I mean? Again, like give them time to cook. But then my counter to that is money.
Yes.
Dude,
Yeah.
without $15 a month, and even if they open a merch store, I don't know if they can go to 12 years, like financially. And they have to still recoup all this money back, right? Like they're going to be in the red when they launch, right? This is a startup company. This isn't a multi-billion-dollar company, or they have a producer that's giving them tons of millions of dollars or whatever. Like that's my actual worry, really, is what is the viability of how long they could actually go financially to meet a minimal viable product? That I think is the honest and real conversation to have. And there may be some things like as we go on, like as Steven said, well, yeah, we want you guys to test all 18 biomes. Great. But I think either one or two things is happening, because I've always said 2, 3, 4 years potential with this Alpha 2. If we start seeing a very fast cadence of the Alpha 2 in the sense of releasing this biome, releasing that biome, but then again, each biome feels very not filled with quests or stuff like that, they're probably trying to reach that minimal viability product. Because again, like if Steven says, guys, we got maybe 3 years at the most to actually launch, because then we have no money. Like, you know what I mean? Like that could be a realistic conversation. You know what I mean? Which is why I was shocked that they actually reopened keys for people to purchase, because it seemed before in January that they weren't going to do that. That all they were kept on saying is contests. Oh, if you want to get an Alpha 2 key, like you got to get it now, because later on the only way you'll probably get one is through a contest. And that isn't the case anymore. And that kind of indicates to me is that they need money. And again, any startup always needs money. And so
Everyone needs money.
yeah, that's again just my realistic concern.
I want to bring something up, by the way. I will have to look at the wiki and double check, but if I'm not mistaken, they've said in the past that the underground is actually how you'll be able
Depends
to bridge the
between
gap.
two.
Yep.
I think
And
so, yeah.
so without a naval system, you'll still be able to bridge that gap. You'll just have to go through Tulnar Town, and it might be a really fun time down there.
Which is also
Tulnar
side
stretch goal.
That's another one.
They're
Could they launch
they're
without the
stretch goal.
Tolnar
stretch goals, yeah.
and without the
Like I
Underrealm?
said before,
If they
Steven
don't
has
have
made
the
so many
underrealm and they don't
promises.
have naval, then yeah, that would kind of be trouble, because it means they'd have to have a
Yes,
stupid
Tolnar was a
teleporter to
stretch
get
goal.
between.
Yeah, Tolnar was
Yeah.
100% a stretch goal.
And so was Naval, actually.
Yeah.
But
I don't know, and my line of thinking tends to go the same as yours, Vladis. Now I will say I say this about other games. I think the guys have heard me say this about Pantheon too. Like they're a little bit different. They're a small team. It's like you're such a small team. I don't know why you want to put all these zones together. Just put out 5 or 6, let people play it, add some more as you go. Ashes is obviously a bigger team, but I think when you watch some of the times that Steven has talked about money, he he has a very pained look on his face that he's not had before.
yeah,
My career job is to read people, and he has a very anxious, pained look on his face when he talks about money. So I don't know. I think there are just some things I think they could forego and still have a fun game, but
yeah. Well, it's overhead, right? So it's the fact of living in California, like, and there has to be tough decisions, right? So we like I said, they said 3 years, right? Like that was my fake example, right? But the harder conversation is we could technically go 4 years, but we would have to lay off like 25% of our employees. Again, like I'm talking real shit. This is real shit talk right now. Like, and I think this is again like the conversations that Steven and his upper management team would probably have to have. And this would be something for us players to be like, wow, okay, like it's getting real, right? Like this is real stuff. And again, this is someone's livelihood, and these are people's livelihoods too. These are people that are pouring all their time and effort into trying to make this game the best they possibly can. And I understand that, in my perfect world, I would love for them to just take as much time as you need. If it needs 5 more years, then do it. But can you financially afford 5 more years? And I don't know if they can. You know what I mean? And this is the whole conversation around this conversation, which is important.
You can get a fairly decent estimate of their costs. I mean, this isn't hard.
Yeah.
You can go to Glassdoor. You can find out what the average salary is per employee. We know how many employees they have because they tell us. You can look at. It's not too hard to find rent for their area, their size of space. They've told us how much space they have. Server costs, like it's not hard to get an estimate, and I think when you
Yeah.
do that, I've done that. I'm not here to jump into Steven's pockets though, so I'm not going to.
No.
It's not cheap. It's not cheap. They
No.
are spending a lot of money every year, and I think there's a fairly strong chance that our show goes a decade before this game's released, and if that's the case,
Mm.
they're going to have probably at best 5 years trying to make up what they've spent.
Yeah. And then you got to pay yourself back, right? Like, so it's like, then it's like you launch this product. Like, let's say if they do, right? Like, this is the other thing. There's so many things I worry about, and I'm not even like, I'm financially like invested. Of course, I bought my stuff, but I'm not as financially invested as like Steven is, right? So it's like, you think about it, like, let's say you can go for as long as you need to, where the game is at its best possible release, and there's 50,000 people that end up staying with your game 3 months after. That's another hard conversation.
It's not doable. Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like, that shit scares me. I think of WildStar all the time, and I don't want Ashes to be WildStar. And
you also
it is
talk
what it is.
about people's livelihoods. You also don't want to see a situation where they do release and then they let people off. Oh, got the product out, it's shipped. We're going to
Yep.
fire 25% of our staff.
Yeah.
Say 25 is even a very low estimate,
So-
considering.
Not trying to be doom and gloom, but this
I
is
actually
where
want to bring one other thing up regarding the financial side, is that they have a little bit more going than just the product. They have all the other side technologies that they've invented and developed along the way as well.
Oh, IntrepidNet.
So yeah, IntrepidNet, and there might be other technological spin-offs. And then
They
on the
had their
other side,
proprietary design stuff that they were showcasing before too.
yeah. Now
Within
now
Unreal.
the other side of that I think is interesting to think about, and I'm not gonna say, oh, he's so evil if he does this. But legitimately, if he's able to get patents on some of the technology and those patents go uncontested, or he's able to beat the contests on it, then that's the other way, is there's now a licensing component. Oh, I know you'd love to do this thing with your server technology, but you see, we own the patent on that, so you're gonna have to give us this amount of money, and we got a license you can get going. And yeah, you can see how just doing that a little bit here and there, as that sort of technology improves and upgrades and more people use that sort of system, well, it's either they've got to invent a different solution or they got to pay up. So there's different sides to where, like, IntrepidNet and potentially other things will come in. Something that my brother and I, and him and his girlfriend, not with me in the room, often talk about is merchandise, merch. Make things people can buy. People love buying shit. People love things that they can wear. Full size dolls of, like, the EQ elf lady or whatever, or the full size pillowcase or whatever, whatever sort of stuff, little Grim plushes. Everybody's going to be all about all those cute little creatures being made into plushes. People will buy the shit out of merch, and that's another angle this game can make so much money on.
I mean,
Being
To what
able
extent
to
in terms of profit, though?
3D
Return on
print.
investment on those things are not too high, as I know. Because you need to produce
There's
them, ship them, and whatever. And like, what kind of cost can you put on those things to get enough profit off of them to sustain your development?
Actually, I've seen what the minimum order quantities for and price points are for some of this stuff for these different vendors. And, for a company like Intrepid, it's incredibly affordable. For a lot of that sort of stuff, some of the companies will even do warehouse for you. So there's a lot of ways that can be approached. And not only will they be able to make the extra money, but the other thing is, the more people buy the merch and the more they're invested in that way, the more they're able to have those people stay around as longtime players. If people have, like, the dolls and the hoodies and, like, posters and cool prints and stuff like that in their room. Like, yeah, that person is probably going to keep on playing the game and have things that continue motivating them to play the game. If they can dress
They
up their
also become
character just how they,
advertisement of the game.
yeah, if they can dress up their character exactly how they like and press a button in game to help pose and then 3D print that character with colors and everything and be able to have it on the kind of stand that they want or whatever. Oh yeah, people are going to do that. They'll make the freaking D&D characters that way. Like, that's huge. So there's a
have-
lot of ways they can monetize. So I'm going to throw it to you guys.
I think, and I've said this many times, just make a mobile game. Steven, you're listening to
This
me.
is true. This is true.
Make a pay to win, super egregious but fun mobile game, because people can talk all the shit about Diablo Immortal. That game makes $7 million a day.
Damn.
That game makes bank. And as much people want to talk shit about it, there are people who play it. And you launch an app worldwide, that people can go and play, and again, be open with it. If Steven comes out and says, yeah, we actually made a mobile game, and it actually is super pay to win. Like, it's pay to win. I'm very upfront about it because we're trying to totally use that money to fund my non-to-pay MMO. You know what I mean? And just be upfront about it. Like, and I think, dude, I would fucking mind, because again, mobile MMOs, or just mobile games make money. Like, they do. Like, once you make your game, bro, it's over.
APOC Immortal.
I go more like Tales of Sanctus, where you do a you're like
damn.
Stardew Valley gachapon sort of thing.
Dude, perfect. Like a super casual, but you have to, there's a lot of pay to convenience. Like, if you want to like pay to like speed up the process,
Zynga.
or
Do it
I don't
Zynga
know.
style.
I feel like they got
Ka-ching,
do both.
money.
I feel like they got a lot of shit about APOC though. Like, I don't know.
That's what I was about to ask. Yeah. How much shit do you think they would be able to put up with if they made that?
Like,
Because
there's
I feel like there would be a lot of shit, even if they are super upfront about it, if they are super direct, like, we just need money, dude, go play this little game and give us money. What would be better? That kind of game that you still need to put resources into, because like if you want to get money out of people, you still need to spend money on that, which would be an additional cost at that point, even if the return on investment is kind of huge. What would be the difference between that and, let's say, 3 years down the line, they just come out and say, okay, we see that we still have several years ahead of us, we are selling A2Xs for $50 one-time purchase. How many thousands of people would get into alpha? If at that point alpha 2 has been going on for several years, people have been streaming, talking, whatever about it, and the game is still good, maybe even amazing.
Blizzard
What would be
has
better?
the shittiest reputation. You ask anybody, people have nothing good to say about Blizzard usually. Diablo Immortal makes $7 million a day with the shittiest reputation possible. Okay,
Whales are whales,
So-
yes, but again, is that game good?
doesn't matter. It
On
makes
the
$7 million
terms of
a
just-
day.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the investment required to make a game good enough that the whales would want to play in it.
Oh, like the
and
mobile
pay
game side,
for
you
it.
mean?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because you would still need to invest money to make a good,
No, for
good
sure.
game. Blizzard made a good game, even if they outsourced it to some Chinese people.
was-
Not Chinese,
it
I don't
was-
remember.
No, I think it was Chinese. It
Some
was a Chinese
studios. So
company.
either way,
No.
they invested money. Of course, the return on that investment was fucking ginormous, obviously. But you still
Yeah.
need to invest that money. And would Intrepid have that money to invest? Considering that we are talking about the situation where they might not have money to sustain themselves.
Well,
That's the
I-
question,
I mean, go ahead, Venom.
I was
I
just say-
guess the alternative could be to get an investor for the mobile game. That could potentially work out. Steven comes to someone, says, give me money for this mobile game. We split the profits, but the profits are huge, so it's still fine. I guess that could work out, maybe.
I feel like
So,
investors.
Steven, you can get that idea from me.
That's
free.
a rabbit hole to stay out of right now. There's a
I'm sure he could just get on the call. Yo, NetEase, I got a game for you.
I mean, potentially, yeah.
I mean, he's got the personality for it.
Yeah.
There's a Discord recorded conversation that we've put in our Discord.
Still haven't watched that. Yeah, I need to watch that.
Stephen, God bless him, spent like 2 hours. I don't even know how long that is. I think it's pretty long. I think it's like 2 hours in
I think it's an
Discord. Maybe, I guess. But he was dumped on so hard, and so much of that was APOC. Like, what the hell were you doing? What are you thinking? Why did you waste money? This is, ironically, I think if they do APOC now, like if they hadn't done it
People
before,
have been asking for it.
yeah,
People have been asking for it.
if they do it now when there's actually decent combat, I think it
Yeah.
actually probably does okay.
Mhm.
But the timing was
If
just
they
so
come
off.
back to the old promise of the freaking whatever they are fucking called, the Fortnites, the
Battle
system
Royale?
itself. But yeah, if they go to Battle Royale, Siege game mode, and I think they promised something else as well. But like if they create like mini games in a way with that and add some pay to win within that mode, I do think they would get the money. First of all, second of all, they could use just everything that they have in the game already, so you don't need additional investment on the development side. So I do think people would buy up that shit easily. But it's still a separate horde mode. Yes, thanks, Dix. I do think that the optics overall would still be kind of bad because people, just as they don't understand what open development is, they will not understand even if Steven fucking says again and again, okay, we used everything that we use for the game, but for this exact mode, so we didn't spend more money, we didn't spend more time, it was all reused. But people would still say, okay, this is a fucking scam, it's all the same that you had with APOC, and they would still shit on Intrepid, and the reputation will go into shit. Like it's all a huge, difficult question that usually is a lose situation. So I don't know.
Yeah, but
Actually, you know what? I kind of like the idea as a side sort of thing, having a sort of an arena environment to test max level combat and abilities and see how they fare against each other. Let people kind of mess around with different builds and different sort of archetypes and stuff as like a late sort of like, beta 2 trying to ramp up and get more hype for the game sort of thing as a feature they could then continue. People that just want to go into the sanctioned battle environments and go kick ass, try to be the last one standing. Every time you kill someone, you level up or whatever. However it would go, they can even do a Dota style MOBA with it if they wanted to. There's a lot they can actually adapt the systems to with probably not a terrible amount of effort and certainly without breaking the actual game. I think those are things that they could do if they wanted to and have them be their own fun, unique standalone experiences.
I just want Intrepid to be profitable. I want them
Yeah,
to
Big
succeed,
100%.
and I don't want them to go under 5 years after launch. Like I said, there were so many people that were staunch WildStar players, and it was a sad day in 2018 when that game shut down. And I just don't, because again, I know when Steven says this game would not be for everybody, but it has to be for a good majority of people. Like, you can't be so niche in a game that you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on and expect 25,000 people to support your game and you thrive as a complete startup company. Like, that's just completely unrealistic. And
If we look
I'm-
even at the numbers that TL has right now, that's 300k concurrent players.
Yeah.
I believe that if Ashes is a good enough game in itself with all of its features, systems, whatever, it would sustain that amount of players
I agree.
concurrently.
I
That's
would
not
be,
even talking about the subs overall and whatever.
yeah.
So I do think even if they go down to like 100, 200k while the game is still good, I do think that's enough money for them to sustain development a long time. I believe the math in there, right?
I hope so. I mean, I'd be ecstatic if that was. I mean, I still feel like, again, people underestimate other countries. Like, I don't care what the
For
hell
sure.
the number is in the United States for Ashes. I don't care if it's 50,000 people playing Ashes of Creation in the United States. I care about the worldwide number because that's going to be the money it's going to generate Intrepid the money. And markets like Brazil, South
CIS
Korea,
region, South
Taiwan,
Korea. Yep.
yeah, like all of the
If
European
they
part.
manage to release China, they would get
Oh,
all the
dude.
money. Although that's a
Yes,
completely separate
dude.
topic for them.
Korea for Lineage 2 there were like tens of millions of people played Lineage 2 in just South Korea. So
Although it
I mean,
has shifted to the mobile version more than
yes,
the normal version, which is why it has all the fucking money because fucking mobile, of course. But
right.
yes, there is a
Yeah,
ton of people that would love a game similar to that without all the mobile shit.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't care if people in the United States don't understand the philosophy or don't like the philosophy of the risk versus reward or whatever. But the worldwide number is my thing. And if there's 2.5, 3 million people worldwide playing Ashes of Creation, I'm over the moon. I think Steven would be too.
So I just opened up a
There would also
calculator.
be
Oh,
there would also be some localizing money as well, because I mean local publishing money, because I believe Steven said that what in Asia they want a separate publisher, right? And I think South America, though I'm not sure. So
Yeah.
some money from that as well.
So opened up calculator just to plug some numbers real quick. So if we assume there's 150,000 Alpha 2 testers, let's say all 150,000 of those people subscribe for the full year, that ends up being about $27 million in a year at that amount. Now, considering he has already announced that they've already spent 90 million,
yeah.
and they've really peaked at their burn rate now. Hiring 100 people over the last year or so. Um, so if they go another 3 years, I assume that probably gets doubled to 180 million.
I'm thinking 200 million. Yeah, that
know.
was always mine. My thing.
So just perspective of what they, how many people they would need to recoup that. I
Yeah.
mean, you are talking a
Well,
while,
recoup is a long-term thing for sure.
but at the
But
same time,
it's Steven's money, though. Well, outside of our money, of course, it's still Steven's money, and he keeps saying, "I just want to create the game because it's my child." Let's say, and whatever. So, like, yeah, of course, he wants to recoup the money, but I think that if the game survives for long enough to be successful and great, he will recoup his money for sure. First of all, second of all, I don't know if it's still true, but I believe somewhere in like 2019, 2020, Steven in Discord said that their rough calculations of money per user is closer to like 21 or 22
That's
bucks
true.
rather than just 15. So this would still be slightly higher.
That's
So
true. That's
I
true with
do
the
believe
cosmetics.
money is there.
I was gonna
They
say
just need to release a good product. That's it.
I think if I wouldn't be upset if Steven's like, we're actually thinking of putting a box cost. I would not be upset. I think again, $15 a month, and even if there was just like a one-time box cost, like you buy Ashes of Creation one time, you get all the expansions like for free, But I think having a really good initial bump and having like a collector's edition, I would pay $120 for an Ashes of Creation base, edition with like physical goodies and stuff like that. I would love to have that. And I think again, if you're not going to do that at all, like you're missing out. Because I would love to have it. I know tons of people would love to have it, and that again just gives more money, right? Because I'm going to spend $120 on the collector's edition plus my $15 a month to play Ashes. So
it's a couple of good comments in chat. Nero, you made a good point that if you have some of these bigger streamers, that they're going to probably bring in more people. Of course, again,
Pirate Software is one of them, 100%.
Yeah.
To your point,
Over
Ludullu,
10K.
you need a good game to do that, because I feel like
Exactly,
it's
a good product.
you could very easily have those streamers say this is shit, and nobody does.
Yep.
Um,
As long as the game is good, they will have their money. They just need to make a good game. Which is why we need to test. Let's get it all back. Alpha 2, 12 days. Let's go.
What about gacha mechanics for cosmetics? Would that piss you off? It's not pay to win.
Mean, I'm a Mihoyo player. It would not piss me off, but it would piss off way too many people for the game like Ashes. Because Steven has been screaming at the top of his lungs about shitty practices in other games. If he goes like 180, 460, 360, no scope and says, "Hey, we gotcha, boys. Let's go, kaching, kaching," people will fucking hate him. So, I don't think that would work.
Yeah.
In any capacity.
I don't think it would work either. I think it'd be a really terrible decision to do that, at least in the practice for Ashes of Creation's monetization.
Yeah. Maybe
I
some
think
other
it's a stay.
mode, like something.
There are ways I could see adding the thrill of randomization without making it stupid or painful. This was something from a project I had worked on in the past. We didn't go with it, but we used a version of it, which is that there's a a limited selection on like a spinner or a randomizer or whatever from whatever the specific type of box is that you're trying to open, or whatever set it is you're trying to unlock. And every time you get one of the pieces from that set, it gets removed from the spinner. So eventually, as you've spun it, maybe there's only 10 spins on it to get the entire head to toe and
Limited RNG, pretty much.
weapons.
Yeah.
Exactly. That you're not spinning across the entirety of all the items that you could possibly get, hoping to get the thing. You're just spinning on this particular set, or this maybe like it's a grouping or whatever that it costs a little bit more than like a slightly larger set to get the specificity, but whatever. And it's all earnable through not earnable through gameplay, excuse me. Some of it might be earnable through gameplay, but to advance the process, somebody would really put money into it.
What I can say about that is, from at least like hearing, listening, watching videos about MiHoYo games, people are dumb. Because in MiHoYo it's gacha and whatever, but you have pretty much an upper limit of how much you will have to pay if you want to get like a certain character upgraded to a certain point. There is an upper limit, and you will really not go over it if you want to buy everything. But people are dumb. They don't know that this upper limit exists. So they just spin once, spin twice. Okay, fuck, I lost so much money, even if the third spin will get them the thing they want. Because they only see like, okay, I need to spend here and this. They don't think about the future. So while that might work and it's overall a good system in terms of its fairness, again, in the long run, people do not see the long run fairness. They just see, okay, this is a fucking gacha. I hate this. All the other games that have gacha are shit, and I shall not stand for this. So yeah, I don't believe
Okay.
this would work. People are
Fair
too dumb
enough.
for that.
Vlhadus, what do you
Please tell
think?
us how you feel.
I don't like gotcha mechanics. And Steven always talked about that story about the bear.
Yep.
He spent $700 to try to get that bear, finally got it, and then they released it on the thing. So I don't know if Steven has any fond memories of gotcha either, So
Yeah, which is why I said that if Steven does a 180 and says, hey, we got you, or anything of that sort, it would be like the greatest betrayal of his character and of all of his promises so far. It would
No.
not work for Ashes, for sure.
There's other ways, like I said, like I just think that they need to stay true to what they have said. And I think again, like I think more people will be more accepting if Steven says, "Hey, we're going to do a one-time box cost," right? I think that's a more of a people can understand that. But then saying like, "Oh, we're going to add actually gotcha mechanics to the cosmetic shop," I don't know. That's a whole
Yeah.
other swing of the fence there. You know what I mean? And so I think it just because again, I think most people that I talk to that just have, because there's so many new people that I've went to Discords that I'm like, oh, I've never seen you before. Like, I just got into Ashes like a month ago. I saw the live stream or whatever, and I'm all for it. I bought a key, and so a lot of those people understand that Intrepid is a startup company, because I've asked, I was like, well, do you know like Intrepid is not like a multi-billion-dollar company? Oh yeah, I know. So I think it's just a matter of like, especially when they start liking the vision, right? They see the live stream and they're like, wow, like this seems like a game I can really get behind. And people say, oh, it's just $50 a month. And then if the company then says, well, it's not just $50 a month anymore, it's $40 for a one-time box cost, and then you'll get every expansion for free afterwards, and $15 a month. Because again, all the other MMOs like Final Fantasy 14, World of Warcraft, they all do that. So it's not something unheard
But they are
of.
legacy games.
True.
Even
It is true.
FF14, that was in what, like 2013, 14, then when proper release, Reborn, whatever came out, they are still
Yep.
legacy games because they are still for those people who remember when you did box cost and sub and whatever the hell on top of that. In this day and age, I am not sure, especially by the time the game comes out. Because we're already in a shitty economy. What's gonna happen in the next 3-4 years when they say, "Hey, the box cost is 60, and then on top of that you need to pay"? How many people would be willing to play the game if the
Well,
entrance cost is that high?
or go ahead, Phantom.
I was just gonna say how many people have paid $200+ for a key to an alpha. There's your answer.
And I think a one-time box
yeah,
cost.
100K people
I think
once.
if you're going to charge a box cost every time an expansion comes out, I think that's again that'd be a little
Yeah, that's
much for
worse
Intrepid to
for
swing.
sure. Yes.
But I think a one-time box cost for like a base edition of like $40 plus like $15, I don't think is too much of an ask at that point. Again, it's just to recoup that initial, to get as much money up front
Yeah,
as
the
possible,
proper
right?
push,
Because
yeah.
you're always going to get the most amount of your players at your launch, and then after that, it's always kind of like it wildly sometimes fluctuates, right? But I kind of, and just to your point earlier about the whole 100 hours to 25, I've actually been of the belief that I think Ashes, if this is a big caveat for if Ashes come out the way we all dreamed it would come out, with it being not only like in a finished state, but in a polished finished state, the way we've always imagined an MMO to launch, that we can actually see an upward trajectory for once instead of a downward one when it comes to month 2. Because if you have like people like Pirate Software and all these other people that are like, people are praising Throne of Liberty right now. I've seen TikToks of people praising Throne of Liberty. So if that is a reality, I am also sure that if we get the reality of people praising Ashes, and it actually has so many meaningful parts of the game, it's fun, it's engaging. You people like Pirate Software, other big MMO players, we can probably get like 1 million people here in the United States to like a 1.3 or 1.5, because again, it's like it also isn't a game you can't just conquer in a day or in a week, right?
Or in a
So
month.
even if you're like if you're trying to play like semi hardcore, right? Not super hardcore, but like semi, like let's say you're trying to do like 6 to 8 hours a day. And maybe not every day, but like every other day, or maybe whatever the case is. Like it's a game that you're gonna, you're not going to be able to digest everything. And because of how massive this game is, it's going to have legs. And then you're going to tell your friends about it. And it's like, oh, what are you doing? I'm playing Ashes right now. Like, we're building up a node. And it's like, because again, all of these systems, when you start interacting with each other, get exciting, especially once things start leveling, your server starts progressing, guild wars start happening, the PvP starts happening, the alliances start happening, the enemies start happening. The drama in this game is going to fuel people wanting to play it, because
if Ashes
drama will
manages to
happen.
get Eve drama, Eve levels of drama and the stories that come from Eve, but in Ashes, it would be a great advertisement, especially when you say, hey, it's a simple fantasy game that you just need $15 and go play it. People will definitely try, because picking up Eve because you heard a story is way harder than, oh, okay, this is just an MMO that I have played like 10 times before. So yeah, as long as we get great drama and great stories, people will come for sure.
So Demon Hunter put a comment on YouTube that I thought was interesting, since we're talking about money. Said, I don't think AOC will last more than a year with a $15 sub fee. Does not think. So I assume that means, Demon Hunter, you're saying they'll get rid of their sub?
Either get rid or just die.
I'm curious about that. Like, because if you go free to play, then you have to start monetizing in other ways, more egregiously.
In bigger ways. In more ways.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I don't know if that's a thing.
There's definitely potential, because like at some point Steven might see, okay, my return on investment is going down the drain and draining even more money, so I gotta recoup at least something, and he just says, fuck it, let's do this. Although again, that would go almost directly opposite to his own point of view of, I've hated all the games that have gone pay to win, exactly because they've gone free to play from subscription. Like Lineage 2 was a completely sub-based game back in the day, and then they went free to play, and it all gone into even more shit than before. Like the only ones who survive are WoW and FF14, mainly because they have managed to keep the audience to where the audience is willing to pay for all of that over and over and over. So I don't know if a new game can do that.
ESO has a subscription model. I don't think it's necessary, but
yeah,
for a lot of people that play the game, if you're playing it seriously, it is kind of necessary.
Yeah.
Same thing with
They
like
might go that
SWTOR.
they might go that route, kind of like a Diggs's beloved battle pass, where you just pay, you get better functionality or features, but you don't need to pay. So
Yeah.
maybe potentially, but then they would bring out a ton of questions of pay to win and whatever, which is its own issue. And also going free to play would put so much strain on the anti-botting system, anti-RMT system. It would require a fairly big redesign of in-game systems like economy and stuff, because people can create alts and do whatever with those alts, and all of this is a huge question whether the game can even go free to play or whatever. So
I was
yeah, difficult.
I'm gonna kind of change the subject kind of almost completely because I want to ask Diggs a question. What did you think when Steven said about the leveling and the whole 100 hours to level 25? Like, how do you feel about that?
That's pretty much the same thing as 225 to 50.
Okay.
It's fine. It's twice that. It's doubling that, and it's when you get to. It should take 4 months to get to level 50, or six
Yeah.
months to get to level 50. That's the crazy part.
Yeah.
Hold up, real quick. Jamie Chaos, thank you for the raid.
Hey,
Oh, did
And-
raid over?
goddamn
Yeah,
cultists.
everyone that's
Also,
joining us.
on Diggs's point, that's a great point. If it takes 100 hours to 25, it
What?
would take like 125 to level 50. So it's a very weird curve where you go up higher
I mean,
200 hours at 25, but then you somehow don't change up from that. I feel like that's a weird type of leveling design. I didn't think about that when I heard Steven say that it's 100 hours to 25. I'm curious how
just-
people will take that.
I think people are gonna feel like, wow, this is gonna be super grindy. You know, and again, Steven says I'm kind of a grindy kind of
That's
player.
for sure first part. Yeah.
Um,
That's first
but
thought. Oh my god, grindy.
but when I play classic WoW, or even when I go back to like when I played vanilla WoW, like back in 2006, as someone new, like I really appreciated how the pacing of that game felt as someone who wasn't in the MMO genre. I feel like there's been this super toxic, um, like almost like authoritarian approach that MMO gamers have because they experienced all these other MMOs, and we kind of did it to ourselves where we kind of negatively affect our journey over min maxing or efficiency or speed.
Yep.
And that's our fault. So if you feel that need to be competitive or to forego your journey and then get upset at the company because the leveling was too fast or the leveling was shit or whatever, it's like, well, no, the guide you followed was for efficiency, for speed. You did it to yourself. You could have actually had a journey if you chose to. In a game, and again, I know there's a lot of people who are very competitive. They want to be competitive with the top stuff, and sometimes you have to sacrifice certain things like the journey in order to do so. But don't shit on the company or shit on the game because you chose to do that. You know, and I think there's this level of toxicity I think that's been occurring for a lot of people in this imaginary race to max level, when there isn't one. You can level however fast you want in whatever MMO. But I think it's always been this mindset of players to level as fast as possible and forego that journey completely, because I think there's a lot to discover in a lot of MMOs, in ESO, in Guild Wars 2, hell, even in World of Warcraft. I was watching this TikTok of a dude who's never played WoW, and he's playing retail, mind you, not classic, and he's enjoying the hell out of the game. And as much as people like to poo-poo WoW or whatever, if you choose to want to have a journey, you can. It's just you are forcing yourself not to.
Yeah. Diggs is typing. That's why it's all quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I missed a little bit of that, but I think that's one of the things that is very, very important in the game is how much narrative content there is for players to discover and follow up on and have quests that lead them to more and that sort of stuff. That's a lot of the sort of stuff that I think is going to keep people playing the game long term is because there's different things that you'll see in different areas, and so players will want to go around. They might even make alts just to play through again. Now it's 1,000 hours to play with one of each race. 2,000, maybe less because you've got enough equipment and skills and stuff to arm yourself. But there'll be a point where if you've played all 9 of them, yeah, that could be like 1,800 to 2,000 hours, and each one of them being its own journey with its own interesting content for the areas that the player is leveling up in, and what's going on in the state of the world at the different times as those things are going on.
Yeah.
So, that's the sort of thing that I'm hoping is going to really keep the game going, is that there's so much going on and so much for players to discover, that's just really compelling, that it keeps them playing time after time again, making alts, reading other people's notes and stuff about the game. Even if you're not playing and you're just reading about the game while you're like at work or whatever, or watching streams while you're cooking dinner or something, that's people still engaging with the game, and that's the sort of thing that'll also keep people uh coming back and enjoying not just for the gameplay but the story. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say that a game that I think does that really well is Final Fantasy 14. When I played Final Fantasy 14, I really enjoyed that journey because of the story. It was very story focused. And another game that I thought was really cool as a journey was SWOTOR. I loved the freaking SWOTOR story. Oh my god, it was so good. Um, really enjoyed the Sith warrior storyline. That was epic. Oh my god. And again, it's because I chose to slow down and enjoy myself and not just skip and enjoying the biomes, or like looking around, seeing the quests and stuff like that, right? Like again, like no one's like tying my arm wanting me to go to max level, right? Again, I think it's just this, especially when you've been in the MMO community 5 years, 10 years, it's almost like this subconscious ingraining in your mind that you have to, right? When you go into an MMO, you have to level as quickly as possible and get to end game, right? It's always the conversation is always about end game, but there's a game to be played at level 1 and you're skipping it, and as I've heard this literally from countless discords that I talk to with Ashes, and people say this statement of, "Man, I just want to have a journey with Ashes." And I ask them like, "Well, why didn't you have a journey with the MMO you're currently playing?" Or and it's again, it's this mentality. I think this mentality is to be cleansed. You gotta wash yourself away with this mentality and just enjoy the fucking game, man. Just who's pressuring you? You know what I mean? And I think
Usually
we are.
friends. From personal experience, it was friends.
Oh yeah.
I got invited into WoW Classic right before it switched to TBC, and I tried to enjoy, because I never played WoW before that, and I tried to enjoy WoW as it supposedly was meant to be enjoyed. I read all the quests. I didn't look up any guides. I didn't download any plugins. I was just running around. I was reading quests, seeing, okay, I need to get to this location, and I was trying to figure out where that location was. It was a great game. I barely got to level like 30 or something, while all my friends said, okay, dude, you gotta fucking download and install these plugins. You gotta go freaking level quicker because we're gonna out level you and stuff. So I feel like this pressure is usually societal, especially from friends as well, who have either explored all the information about the game or just want to progress as fast as they can because, oh my god, we need to fight, or like we need to be the best that there ever was. And then people who do want that journey literally can't, because the game will not be as soloable as some other MMOs right now might be, and so it'll be even harder for them to enjoy their journey.
So
So
think about it
I don't
in
know.
this. Think about it in the sense of addiction. If you are trying to be a recovering alcoholic, and all your friends
But
are
drinking, yep,
super
yep,
hardcore drinkers,
yep.
should you hang out with them?
I mean, leaving your friends for their preferences is a completely different deep topic. I don't know. I
Well,
personally think that you should have friends based on a lot of things. And so while they can have some bad habits that influence you directly, I still think they should be your friends if there's like a ton of other stuff that you like them for. So,
You can
yeah, I don't know.
still be their friends. Not saying that you should get rid of them permanently, but you shouldn't be around them around the thing that you want to do differently, right? And again,
And
I understand.
that's
I
my
understand
point
social
towards
pressure.
the solo ability. That's why I said that
Right.
I do not believe that Ashes will be soloable enough for people that have hardcore friends to do a casual playthrough of the game without having to go to those friends. As you say, if you want to isolate or I mean differentiate your friends who are hardcore from your casual journey, I do not think they'd go for a long while in the game, because at that point you are playing a solo experience, while the entire game is based on sociable experiences. And
Well,
then they would need to find new friends in the game, which is a separate difficulty when you already have for your friends. You know them, you want to play with them, but they are all hardcore. It's a difficult situation, which I don't know how many people would find their way out of easily.
it's you know, like we have a day and age of Discord. Like, I mean, there's plenty of guild pages, of promotional things, of going in and
True.
meeting people. I think, again, not saying that your clique of people you shouldn't play with them, but I always have advocated to play with people that are on your level. Like, and if you want to get out of the mindset of rush, 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 and that's the mindset of your friends, then you do need to find some new friends to play with. You know, because if you don't want to do that and you want to have a journey, you can't have a journey when someone's like, all right, dude, I finished the quest, let's go, 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 go. You can't do that.
That's
Like, you know
true.
what I mean? Like, it's antithetical to what you're trying to accomplish. There's two differing paths here. So you're in a fork of the road. And all I am saying is that if you want to have that journey, that you have to try to find people that also want to find that journey. And again, I think the people that actually have the longevity in those MMOs are the journeyers and not the people who rush. Typically, the people who rush end up quitting the game anyway. So what was the point?
Yep.
You got to the race and now you're leaving the stadium. You know what I mean? So it's like what was the, you know, okay, fine, you rushed there, you got there quick, but now you're not even playing anymore. You know, so it's like, what was the point anyway? If I was trying to rush and I couldn't even catch up to you, and then when I finally got to max level, oh, I already did everything in the game. I'm not playing anymore. It's like, okay,
As
then.
a slight
Well, the
counterpoint to that.
point,
Oh,
but
Dix.
wait, the point should be that max level does not have to be end game. Max level of adventurer does not have to be end game, and it is
Absolutely.
not end game in Ashes of
Supposedly.
Creation. And that's my
Yeah.
point, is that it's designed by design. There's tons more stuff to do besides just reaching max level 50, or not even max level. I shouldn't even say that. Just reaching level 50 adventurer is not end game in Ashes. Um, there's many more progression paths where you will be leveling, and there's nodes and new content coming from the rise and fall of nodes. So that's the main point with Ashes, is Ashes already has a bunch of other stuff to do besides just leveling to 50.
It will be on each person to decide what they want to do and what they will enjoy in the game. That's true. As a slight counterpoint to Vladis's point, how many people have you seen that would prefer a soloable MMO rather than to try and find all the communities on Discord or wherever that would would support their gameplay style? Because I've seen a ton of people that say, hey, I want to play this game solo just because it's a fucking pain to find new friends. And I've seen a ton of those people. While I'm sure there are a lot of Discords, a lot of communities, guilds, and whatever, but considering how much, even on just the forums, there've been threads about, okay, guilds shouldn't be this overpowered in Ashes. Okay, I should be able to solo stuff. Okay, I should be able to get rewards when I come as a solo player to like a world boss or whatever. I've seen a ton of those kind of feedback. And to me, that says that people do not want to just find a new group of friends, because they rather just play solo if their friends do not play like them. So, and at that point, if Steven sees that and says, okay, let's add some solo ability, that would be a different game, in my opinion.
Well,
So,
people will always advocate for soloability because it's the least path of resistance, right? They don't have to worry about having to group up with other people. And I think it is
Yep.
a little antithetical to the design of Ashes. I think Ashes, it should promote the group gameplay play style. I remember the reason why I quit Final Fantasy 11 back in 2005 was because I couldn't find a group. And you know why? Because it was 2005. There weren't discords, the forums. Like, where did I go?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
it was hard back then to find like people to play with, and all I could do was shout like, "Hey, can anybody help me do this thing?" And I would just like crickets if no one clicked on me or wanted to like help me or whatever. And I had a very hard time like trying to play that game because that game was also very much group centric. You couldn't really do anything solo, and it was hard for me to find a group.
That's
We're in
why I
2000.
loved L2's guild system, because it supported new players. The guild had a portion of it that was dedicated directly to onboarding newbies below level 20. And when those newbies leveled out of a certain limit, they would give benefits to the guild. So guilds would just go out of their way to look for newbies to help them level up, and it would create sociability and would create links between people. Because this newbie that is completely new to the game, let's say, he comes in, he sees near immediate invite into a guild, and they're like, "Hey, okay, here's some money, here's some gear. If you have questions, just ask us, we'll help you." And that's it. You have at
So-
least some connection to the game. So I hope Ashes has something like that to that kind of scale, because we have the mentorship program. But I do believe that we should have something like that in guilds as well, so that the communities, the pre-established communities, go out of their way to speak to new players or to lobbies or to whoever, and that would help with overall sociability. So when
But-
players like you come into the game without even discords, without looking for other third-party ways to communicate with something, they find people immediately. I hope we have that.
Well, so most people that I talk to are the reason why it's hard for them to find a guild is because it's hard for them to talk, period. Most of the solo players are completely antisocial. It's hard for them. They are nervous to speak. They are
True,
nervous to
yep.
jump in. And a lot of the times we're in a day and age where you can watch a YouTube video and this person's a guild leader and be like, "Hey, if you're interested in this game, come join my guild." Like, there's tons of promotions. Like, there is, to me, it's an excuse, really, when people say they can't find people to play with
Solo
because
people that I play with are social.
no, I'm saying a lot of the people I talk
The
to
internet is following up.
are antisocial, and that's why they advocate for the solo mindset, because they want to be able to do
Yeah, yeah.
everything by themselves. I'm not saying that there's definitely a lot of solo players that are very social, like, but a lot of people that I've talked to, especially in the Ashes community, are very antisocial. So I think that antisocialness is also that thing of why single player games or the single player mentality for MMOs has been thriving, because
So
they don't
them
have to
prevalent.
interact with anybody. They don't have to reach out to anybody. They can do it all themselves. So it allows them to play the game. Whenever a person that is antisocial is met with the, "Oh God, I have to group up. This is a group quest. Ugh, can I skip it? Can I," it's like they have that dread because
Yeah.
they don't like to talk to people. You know what I mean? But to me, again, I think it's a cop out. It's an excuse. Not saying that they're antisocial, but it's an excuse that people say that they can't find people to play with. Like, I think that's an excuse. Like, you can, you just don't
True.
want to.
Yep.
And if you don't want to, well, you're going to kind of struggle in a game like Ashes of Creation. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's going to probably be 70 or maybe even 60% of the stuff that you can do solo. I wouldn't say no problem, but
Up
you
to a
can do
point.
it.
Yeah.
But there's going to be almost like a good 40% of this game that you're not going to be able to do it all by yourself. And so you'll struggle bus until you find a group of people.
I think one thing that will help with that is node citizenship, that you'll be able to find people in your local area. And because they're your neighbors who are working to advance the node, it'll be a lot easier to just form little ad hoc groups with the people that you're seeing in your local area, working with them to that extent. And then the other nice thing with that is if you're just working in the local area, you're not straying far from home. It's easy for you to run back and drop off your resources more frequently, less chance of losing out when you get ganked, and a bit of that strength in numbers. It's also, going to be a detractor for other neighbors of that same node to want to attack you, because I don't know that it's going to de-level the node necessarily, but attacking your neighbors to, affect
Supposedly
their
the rep should go
progress.
down.
Yeah. Uh there's gonna be, all negative benefits to that compared to letting them keep doing their thing and going and doing something else, because there's no reason to gank your neighbors. They're
This-
trying to help build the place up too, and if you discourage them, they're going to stop.
Well, I'm playing
So,
Final Fantasy
go ahead.
11, where after level 10, anything you did had to be in a group.
Mhm.
Every quest, everything. That
Hmm,
to me is
that's rough.
not a good design that Ashes
No.
should implement. And I think honestly, like a 60-40 split where you can do 60% of all the content in the world by yourself, maybe not efficiently, maybe not the best or the fastest, but you can do it. I think is a good balance. You know what I mean? I think with classic World of Warcraft or Vanilla WoW, whatever you want to call it, that was probably like 80-20. 80% of the stuff you can do pretty much by yourself, and there was like 20% that you needed. There was group quests, there was dungeons you had to do, you couldn't do by yourself.
Mhm.
And I think that made it successful, right? Even 20% of
For
you
sure, yeah.
having to be social sometimes was successful.
WoW
So
was the casual MMO back in the day, so
it
yeah.
really was comparatively to what EverQuest, Ultima.
Lineage 2.
It was
Yep.
Lineage. It was definitely the
It's
casual MMO at
it's
that
how
point.
it's how it beat EQ2. I will die. I've mentioned that many times, and it's something I will gladly a hill I will gladly die on. I think EQ2 was the superior MMORPG on release. The problem was it was all group oriented versus WoW
Yep.
was a much easier process, and so
Lineage 2 was the same. Yep.
people just gravitated to WoW. Um, but the
Yeah.
social aspect's interesting because I've talked about this before. Like I can't just get into an MMO, and it's sort of as stupid as this sounds. Sort of dawned on me, and actually this was when we were playing Nightingale, which was not a game that I thought I would enjoy. Um, I didn't put a lot of time in it, and that's because we played it as a group, and that's when my dumbass was sort of like, "Oh well, shit. That's why I don't like playing MMOs. I'm not playing with anybody. Like I'm getting
Yeah.
in, doing my own thing, and I'm getting bored."
Yeah.
But at the same time, as you get older, finding that time to actually to actually find a group and do all that gets harder and harder to do. There was actually a video. I saw this because I will watch Asmund from time to time, and he was commenting on it. It was a guy that was a developer for Fallout and actually WildStar as well.
Yeah,
Timothy
I saw
Kane,
that as well.
and he
Mhm.
was talking about why he does not play multiplayer games anymore. And one of them, actually, you guys have kind of touched on, was the um, aspect of falling behind your friends.
Yeah.
That in a lot of the MMORPGs, that gap gets so large. Like if you're not
Yeah.
there with that static group, you really do fall behind. And that was one of his, interestingly enough, one of the reasons he doesn't like to play them anymore. Um,
I
the
mean,
other,
Then
all the
there's a
MMOs are.
there's a question in context of Ashes. Ashes will have a super long leveling. I feel like that should help people who can't play the same amount of hours. So let's say if it's 100 hours to level 25, and if a group of people that are roughly of the same walks of life get to play some maybe 2 hours, the other 4, the one that plays 4 will not be all that far from the one who plays only for 2 hours. So I feel like that should help grouping, because usually in different MMOs, if you can play like twice the amount the other person, you will level up way higher.
Yeah.
You will progress well faster because the game is designed for you to level up faster than Ashes and progress faster. So I feel like Ashes might help with grouping to a point, but we'll have to see. We'll have to test and
I
all that.
think I think they will, because again, the reason why a lot of the times people fell behind in these retail MMOs or like the current theme park MMOs is because of how you can level from, if you're efficient, you can follow a guide, you can level from 1 to max level usually in these games in like 8 to 10 hours. And
Yep.
like that's so like if I am playing very casually with my buddy and I'm level 27 and then I log in and he's already max level, that's a huge difference. Then I
Exactly.
feel
Yep.
way behind. I feel like, okay, well, I don't even want to play anymore. But it coming to realize that you know, if I really just played like a couple of hours, I can hit max level 2, you know, just as easily. But if I don't have that knowledge, if I don't have that, maybe even that drive, then of course I won't. But a game like Ashes, like if it is going to take that time, you didn't play one day, they might be one level ahead of you, so you're level
If
17 and
that,
they're level 18. Yeah,
if
exactly.
that, yeah.
So it's I don't think it's going to make people feel alienated in Ashes, especially if the leveling speed is that slowed down.
Yep.
And I know people were like going, I'm not saying the numbers I'm saying are like gospel, like I'm not saying I'm wanting it, I'm just trying to make examples from like classic WoW. I think again in this day and age, I've always advocated for Ashes to be a group MMO. But do I want it to be as group MMO as Final Fantasy 11? No, I don't. I really don't. I think there should be some things that you can do solo, but I think it should be difficult. You know what I mean? And Steven said so himself in live streams or whatever, and I'm okay with that. I
It's
want
just
to
a
play with
difference
people.
in progression speed. Yeah, parties
Yeah,
can progress faster, while solos can still progress, but just slower. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I mean, I just want to be able to play with the buds, you know, go in Discord, be like, hey, what are y'all doing? Are y'all doing a caravan run? Like what's the deal today? You know what I mean? Or oh no, we just got initiated a guild war because, you know, fuckface over there, you know, pissed us off and now we're in a guild war with them, you know, and I'm gonna love that. It's like, oh shit, I was planning to do some gathering today, but we're gonna do some PvP. Like I think that kind of logging in and getting that kind of excitement because of all of the random stuff that could potentially happen.
Yep.
It's just really exciting overall.
You know, I
A story arc progresses and
interested
node levels up.
experienced the opposite actually as well with the other end of that with Nightingale 2, where I put so much time into it that I outpaced like Diggs and Neuro, and I was on the higher end, and I kind
Mhm.
of it's sort of the waiting, and I got bored and I quit playing.
Yeah.
So I've kind of
And
seen
for
both.
that kind of thing, I hope that Ashes helps us help the other ones who are slower than us, because I've experienced my cat is going crazy. I've experienced a similar thing in Lineage 2 where I would outlevel my friends, but at that point it allowed me to maybe get some more money, which would help them level up faster because I gave them that money. They geared up slightly faster as well, and they leveled up faster because of that. And I feel like if Ashes can help us help others who are lower level than us, then I feel like this will be also a lesser problem than in other games. And supposedly that will be the case if the crafting system requires like materials from all levels and requires items from lower levels and all of that stuff. So even if you do out level to some extent, you can still go and help your friends in some form that will let them level up faster.
There's something I want to similar, so I guess it's not completely sidetracking this, because I think part of this also comes into the new players, and there's actually some conversation in chat about sort of new players integrating into existing games and things. I was really glad that you asked Vladis the question about the starting areas. Um,
Yeah.
that was, I think, a great answer that was given, because I equally had this sort
Yeah.
of concern about people, especially new players that aren't necessarily used to quote PVX.
Yeah.
Um,
I had because I had a buddy of mine that was saying like, man, I can't wait to start killing those people spawning right from the portal. And I'm like, I don't know if you can. Is like, they should. People should know what this game is right off the bat. And I'm like, dude, you should log in, get your bearings first, like set up your UI, click a button. Like, why are you trying to kill people second one of the game? That's what kind of
It
spawned
was
this whole
my plan as
conversation.
well.
Because yeah, like I had PvPers, hardcore PvPers that wanted to do that, right? And it's, you know, and again, I there is no shortage of PvP in Ashes of Creation, but I think Ashes will completely fail or become extraordinarily niche, just like Mortal Online 2, which has like less than 1,000 players. If Steven were to be like, yeah, I'm cool with that, kill people right when they spawn in, you know, or create a character and go in, like, do it. You know, I think it would just spell disaster overall. So I was very worried about the making sure that at least the Citadel, you're protected. You know what I mean? So
um, Is there something else I was going to talk about? Oh, I also found it interesting. He commented that they have the ability to flip. I guess this makes sense, but mentioning that they can turn zones PvP on and off if needed. I thought that was an interesting answer as to where
Yeah.
the use cases for that could be. And I think back to this is, I guess since we're getting towards the end of our time, it's not been publicly announced, but we will have Steven on with us next Sunday
Let's
um,
go.
at oh shit, what time is it? 2 p.m. Central, 12 p.m.
Well,
Pacific.
mhm.
So it's a little bit
They're
earlier.
all getting later. Vlhadus was at what 11 to 12. Then Yokai today were 12 to 1. Now you are up to 2. Why is it getting later?
But I don't know. But we it's a weird time to do this because like especially for us, there's gonna be like 5 days and like
Yeah,
so
right
so
before.
what can you really ask? Like it's like who gives a shit? We get to play it in 5 days. Like who cares if you asked about this or that? Um, but this was one of those questions that I was going to ask him about, and it was spawned actually from you asking that question or him talking about that. Um, was what will he do? What approach will they take if they have a similar experience to Ashes to Alpha 1, where they had to disable PvP because of all the craziness that was happening. I'm starting to think of
I'm expecting that personally.
yeah, and I want to ask him. I want to follow up to Vladis's question here. Is the reason you have this ability because you're anticipating you might have to turn PvP off occasionally? Um,
Absolutely. And it's going to piss off the PvPers. But again, the PvPers, the PvP and the systems about this game piss them off because they're still going to stay. That's the big difference. The PvPers, because there is no other game or no other MMO right now that has as many PvP systems and that has all of the interconnectivity of all these systems that Ashes will have. There's no alternative. So you can piss them off. It's fine. They'll still play. They'll complain. They'll bitch and moan, but they will stick around and still play. The PvEers, on the other hand, that's a whole other question.
that's a big question. Um,
Yep.
Actually, one of the things I want to ask him, we've also submitted some topics, not really questions, but topics,
Okay.
which we'll sort of pin down. I think once we saw you, we saw Yokai. I think there's one more. Don't know that it's been announced, so I won't spoil it. What they end up asking, but I want to ask some more interesting questions like this. What was I going to ask him too? Oh, just sort of things like you're 5 days out. What's your biggest fear right now? You know, how what
Servers.
how,
It all
how,
crashes and burns. Yeah.
how do you think things are going to go? Um, those are the sort of things I'm starting to kind of pin down a little bit more.
Dude, you got to follow up on aliens. You talk aliens with him. He loved it. It was great.
Yeah, you got like an extra 9 minutes out of him.
I
We-
know. I was really shocked, to be honest,
We-
because I didn't want to press him too long, but I just Adam and was very gracious to allow it, and so was Steven. So I really enjoyed the last bit of our conversation.
Interestingly enough, when we were setting all this up, and we knew when or had an idea of when we would be going in comparison to everyone else, we actually did put in the chat that there was a conversation had about, hey, we'll just talk about aliens on backup if they take all our questions. So
Do it, dude. Oh my god, I love conspiracy. I'm a conspiracy nut. I love talking about just like dumb random shit because I talked about it with my dad and a couple of my friends growing up in high school. Like I did for speech my senior year, I did a whole speech art or a whole speech paper on the Lalilulelo, which was like the Illuminati at the time. And that was really really cool, and even researching back in 2005 about that was really surreal, especially with early internet. You remember
Yeah.
early internet, right?
I bet you
So.
found stuff not related to the stuff you were looking for.
Yeah.
The early internet was oof.
Oh yeah. What was it,
Spooky.
E-Bombs World? You guys remember E-Bombs World?
Yes.
Yeah, all of it.
Oh
Well,
man.
we're starting getting towards the end. The only other thing I wanted to point out, or that I noticed that stuck out to me, I should say, from when your question about rogues, It sounded like he said they kind of have stopped. They've like paused. Like they're not.
Sounds like
Is
it.
that how you got? Yeah, that
Yep.
like they're just sort of not
Yeah.
working on it anymore. Which
Yep.
also makes me
I
wonder about the summoner.
so I asked that question because I had about 5 people message me on Discord privately, like, Vlad, please ask him about rogues. And I truly thought this was going to be kind of like a positive thing because I was personally believing next month was going to be the rogue showcase. Like I really did. I thought rogue showcase is probably going to be next month for sure in November. And when he said it, I was like, oh, this was a downer. It's like I wasn't expect. Well, I mean, I should have expected it, but it makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, Rogue's not going to be at the start of phase 2, so it sucks. But again, I'd rather them just cook than give some kind of tank presentation on the Rogue. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, Diggs put it in chat. I think that you should ask him that. Why is the rogue so difficult? I feel like that's one of the
Mm-hmm.
easier
remember
sort of
when-
things.
Remember when he said last year, he was like, "Oh, Rogue's going to be in May." He said that like in Discord, like, "Oh yeah, Rogue's coming up in May." And I was like, "Oh, like what happened?" Because it's like clearly like stuff was going on, but I think I don't know, maybe it's the dagger speed, maybe it's the movement, maybe I don't know. Like I really don't know.
Feel like they might be trying to go into a special or unique direction, and it's not working out, or at least as well as they
Potentially.
wanted to. Because
Yeah,
like
maybe they
making a rogue supposedly is fairly easy, but then you are making the same thing that all the other games did. And if
Right.
they are trying to make something at least somewhat unique, that's obviously gonna be difficult, and potentially they're having some problems with it.
you know,
Probably
having an
trying.
identity is hard for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say probably trying to figure out whether they want high damage or CC and mobility with low damage. I don't know that CC is going to be a thing, but that's a whole other show. So
Oh, yeah, it is.
I'm sure it will be in PvP, but outside of that, I don't see the need of saps and sleeps and all the things that we're sort of used to.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, you
I
do
agree.
if you're playing with Steven and he trains a bunch of stuff that you got to put to sleep.
Exactly.
He's done that a few times now.
he was just demonstrating the capabilities of the class.
Nah, that's Lineage 2 gameplay directly from Steven. We used to sleep a ton of mobs because you would gather a ton of mobs. You would sleep at least like a part so they don't hit you as hard because they hit really fucking hard. And you farm out the other ones. But you collected all of them together so that other people couldn't farm them instead of you. So it's a valid gameplay in PvE as well.
I just don't want the one thing, and I know AoEs. I so every MMO, especially in
It-
dungeons,
yeah,
is gather mobs, AoE, gather
AoE,
mobs,
yeah.
AoE. It is the most boring shit like ever. Like, and the only interesting mechanics usually is from the bosses. So it's like every mob pack is just the same copy pasta,
Mhm.
and the bosses are the only thing different. Like this is why I've always advocated that having strengths and weaknesses in these classes would make the mob pools just as interesting maybe as the bosses, because if you as a rogue can only excel in single target and your AoE, you have like maybe 2 abilities in your kit that are AoE based and they kind of suck comparatively to other classes, then you're just going to focus on single target. And if there's a high priority caster, you're going to put the rogue on there, right? So it's like I remember in classic, like that's kind of like how it was. Like you would have certain classes like do certain things and they excelled at, right? Like you had the mage focus on AoE because mages in classic were really really good at it, and there used to be these identities there. And I feel like MMOs just homogenize classes way too much to where now it's just AoE fests over and over and over and over again. And so I kind of want some of these base archetypes to kind of rein in the AoE a bit, because I really don't want that gameplay for Ashes personally. I don't know.
At least the mobs could have some either abilities or maybe AI triggers or something that counter AoEs. So let's say if several mobs are getting into a very tight spot, they either start running in different directions or they change aggro drastically or something like that. So the AoEs just simply don't work against them. So I hope that Intrepid managed to design it in a way where AoEs are not as effective as everywhere fucking else.
Well, the last thing I want to add, which actually goes back, I pulled this up and I forgot to bring it up. Actually, I think we just moved on to another topic. It's back to the discussion of cost,
Okay.
box costs, sub cost. Just throwing this out there, not saying it's a good thing. Chat had mentioned EverQuest 2 way back when we were talking about that. EverQuest 2 has, and I think EverQuest as well. Every expansion they've ever had costs money. So like right now, if you want their next expansion, it's $35 if you want to play it. So they actually, and apparently people pay it. They even have, well, I'll just tell you, standard is 35, collectors is 70, premiums 140, family and friends is $250, and that's been their expansion prices, and people pay it.
Wow.
So
Yeah, they do.
That's the same legacy game as WoW or FF14. How many other games have something similar? Well, outside of like Ubisoft to pay us $140 for the same game, but you get a cosmetic, or you get to
Yep.
play 3 hours later.
Yeah.
But I feel like the legacy games can get away with that because they have their core audience that are ready to pay that because they've always done that. I don't know how many new games can get away with that.
Flanker and
Well, I think
Terran are
the
right. Lotro and WoW have always done that too. So
Well, I mean, I think if you start setting a precedent where you can't do that just because you're a new game, I don't know if I agree with that either. I think the
True,
reason
yeah.
why they haven't been able to get away with it is because the quality of those MMOs have been trash at the start. And
Yeah,
so
but
they
people will
they
definitely pay for something good.
yeah, the quality is going to matter, right? So I mean, again, the quality of these launched MMOs, it takes so long usually. Like SWTOR took forever to actually get good. People don't remember early SWTOR. Like, it was bad. I saw videos. It was terrible. I've heard people give testimonies on it. A lot of these MMOs when they launched weren't pretty, and so I think with Ashes, as long as they can maintain the quality, I think they can do it. And even I'm still advocating for just a one-time box cost. I think, having to buy boxes after boxes, I think if they want to do that, have it just be physical. So you don't need to buy a collector's edition for our expansion, but we're going to offer you guys one, and it has like goodies in there. There's like an art book, there's like a medallion, there's, this or that, or a little statue or, stuff. I think that would be really cool, but it's completely optional. It is not required or necessary, but it's there if you're like a collector mindset of person.
oh, look
Optional
at
stuff
that!
is always great.
Look at that! They with you also get a level 130 character boost. That's a whole nother conversation. Diggs, don't worry, not going to go into that. 130 levels sounds amazing.
The reason why, I'm just going to say real fast, the reason why I like the idea of the box price that comes with a month or however much subscription and
Oh, that's good too. Yeah.
maybe some embers or whatever, is that it makes it so every time somebody wants to start up a new alt account, they're a whale already, so squeeze the whales for even more. And likewise, somebody that's trying to exploit the game and constantly churns through new accounts has to pay up every time to make a new character.
Yeah. And I also put in chat there, Pathfinder Online also had a monthly sub for testing. And guess what game did not finish development? Pathfinder Online.
Cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say about this. Okay. Interesting.
Well, all right, everybody. We are a little bit actually over our time. So I appreciate you both spending your Sundays. Actually, it's not Sunday with you right now, is it? It's Monday?
Yeah, it's Monday. 6 a.m.
Your Monday morning.
Damn.
And Vlhadus, your Sunday evening. And
Yeah.
everyone in chat, thank you as well for joining us. Like I said,
Thanks, everyone.
this was our last, I think, sort of normal probably stream. That's why we wanted to bring both of them on. Like I said, we have Steven next time. And then after that, we have the game. So who knows what happens on Sundays
Finally,
after that.
unless they delay.
Yeah, that won't happen. But um, so yeah, so we're appreciative of you both coming on, and be seeing you in
Thanks for
games
having
soon.
me on again.
I've been
Yes.
like I said, I think everybody already knows you that's been in our chat, and I've been rolling your socials in our chat this whole time. So,
Yeah.
but I'll give you all the shot. Vlhadus, you first. Where can people find you?
Oh, just Vlhadus Gaming, YouTube, Twitch. Yeah, that's basically it. Thank you guys. I always enjoy hanging out with you guys. It's always a bunch of fun.
Same.
And I'm Ludullu on Twitch.
Perfect. All right.
Yep.
Well, thank you all again,
Aren't you
and
Sujama? You're not Sujama?
Sujima, these nuts! Come on, finish it, finish
what the fuck just happened? I don't know.
I don't know what's going on.
Trying to end the show, and all of a sudden it's Sujima these nuts. I don't
That
know.
was the perfect end. Perfection. I gave you the perfect exit, and yet you choose not to take it.
All right.
Phantom.
Well, there's a good reason for that. We're gonna actually raid no one.
Ooh.
No one. He's actually
Yes.
watching yokai. So I'm going to send us there. For those of you who do not know, is there no one else? He does Voices of Vera with Nice Gaming, Tuesdays. And that's also found on YouTube. So we're going to send everyone there. And yeah, thank you all again. And thank you everyone for watching, everyone on YouTube that watches this later. And we will see you once again next Sunday, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central. We will have Steven for an hour. We are 100% going to try to get 2 hours again, like we did last year. I don't know that we'll get that, but we're going to try. So
You can try.
yes,
Yeah.
we will try to get on aliens or something and sneak some stuff in there. So, but yeah, y'all have a great week, and we will see you back here next Sunday with Steven.
See you.
Later, everybody.
Later, guys.
Thanks for coming.
Bye-bye.